I spent almost a whole day fixing the back fence, and when I came into the house, covered in mud, my daughter wrinkled her face and shouted, "Mom, that bum is in the kitchen again. He smells like garbage." A friend rolled on the floor laughing. The wife shouted from the room, "He's finally making a difference." Everyone laughed. I smiled and didn't say a word. This morning the phone was full of missed calls. They all asked me to answer. I'm sitting in a cheap roadside motel that smells like bleach and old regret, flipping through 47 missed calls on my phone like they're lottery numbers I never asked for. And not a single one of them is getting a response. Not now. Maybe not ever. This isn't some dramatic midlife spiral or a nervous breakdown brought on by one bad day. No, this is the result of years of being treated like I'm just part of the furniture. Like I'm useful until I'm not. Until I speak. Until I ask for something back. Let me rewind a bit. Yesterday was a Saturday. I'd been outside since just after sunrise, trying to repair the chunk of backyard fence that last week's storm tore down. The quotes I got from contractors were insane, over $1,000, money we supposedly didn't have, at least according to my wife, Claire. Yet somehow there's always enough for her monthly facials and our daughter Zoe's competitive cheer trips. So there I was. 6 hours into manual labor in the 90-degree sun. Ripping out busted posts, mixing concrete, dragging planks, sweating through my shirt. My back ached like hell. I had cuts in places I didn't know could get splinters. But I finished it. Stood back, wiped the sweat off my face, and felt proud. It wasn't perfect, but it stood straight and strong. It would hold. I came in through the kitchen, dirty from head to toe, feeling like I'd actually accomplished something. I wasn't looking for a parade. Just a little acknowledgement. Maybe a cold drink. Maybe someone saying, "Hey, thanks." What I got instead was my 16-year-old daughter Zoe standing in front of the fridge with her friend Madison, both doing some TikTok dance I've seen them rehearse 100 times. The second she saw me, Zoe scrunched her nose like I was some dead animal that had wandered in from the woods. She didn't even look at me, just turned to her friend and said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear, "Ugh, the homeless guy's back." Did someone leave the door open? Madison cracked up so hard she had to grab the counter. Full on doubled over. I just stood there, holding my water bottle, frozen in place. And then Claire's voice floated in from the bedroom, "Well, at least he's doing something useful for once." More laughter. I could hear it echo through the hallway. I might as well have been a punchline in some sitcom I never signed up for. I didn't say a word. I grabbed my drink, walked past them like a ghost, and headed to the bathroom. And there, in the shower, water pouring over me, mixing with the dirt and sweat and humiliation, something inside me just went quiet. Broke, maybe? Or changed. I don't know. That wasn't the first time something like that happened. Not even close. A month ago, I spent 3 weekends tearing apart and replumbing our entire downstairs bathroom after the pipes backed up. Saved us at least $2,000. Claire spent those weeks rolling her eyes about how the house was unusable while I worked. When I finally finished, she glanced inside and muttered, "Took you long enough." Then she pointed at a tiny smear of grout near the baseboard and walked away. "Zoe?" I can't even remember the last time she said thank you. Maybe when she was 10 and I built her a bunk bed she used for all of 6 months. I pay the mortgage, cover the utilities, maintain both cars. Claire makes more money than I do. She works in corporate branding, but her salary is always hers, while mine is ours. I cook half the meals, clean the gutters, mow the lawn, change the HVAC filters, patch the roof when it leaks, fix the garbage disposal when it clogs. But all they see is someone to make fun of. Someone they don't have to thank, just tolerate. That shower was the longest of my life. I just stood there, staring at the tile, wondering how it came to this. 15 years of showing up, fixing things, being dependable only to become a walking joke in my own home. I didn't sleep much that night. Claire didn't notice. She was too busy texting her friends about some wine weekend they were planning. At 5 o'clock the next morning, I got up quietly. Packed a duffel with a few changes of clothes, my laptop, toiletries, and all the essential documents. I stopped by the ATM and withdrew $500 from my own private savings account, the one Claire never cared enough to ask about. Left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter beside a sticky note that just said, "Fix your own damn fence next time." Then I drove. Nowhere in particular. Just away. Eventually, I found this motel $62 a night if you pay cash. I paid for a week up front. Turned off location tracking on my phone. And waited. The calls started around 8 a.m. First Claire, then Zoe. At first, the messages were annoyed. "Where are you? We need milk and bread." And you seriously left over a stupid joke? Grow up. Zoe's first message just read, Dad. Mom's freaking out LOL whatever. Not even a capital letter. Not even punctuation. But I didn't respond. I watched the screen light up over and over and I felt nothing. I didn't leave because of one joke. I left because that joke was the final crack in something that had been splintering for years. Because I was done. Done being the punchline. Done being the invisible handyman/wallet they only noticed when something needed fixing. I'm not sure what comes next. But I know what I'm not doing, going back to the way things were. Tomorrow, I'm calling my old friend Mitch. He's the only one who knows where I am. Always said I should have walked away years ago. Said he's seen how they treat me at every barbecue, every birthday, every family event. I don't have a plan yet. Just a little silence. Just a little space. And for the first time in years, I can finally breathe. It's been 2 weeks since I walked out of that house, 2 weeks of silence, cheap coffee, and slow mornings without someone yelling from another room asking if I've fixed the sink yet. After the third day, I checked out of the first motel and moved to another one across town. Not because it was any nicer, it wasn't, but because Claire had started sniffing around. The front desk guy at the first place gave me a heads up. Said some woman came in with a photo on her phone, crying, asking if they'd seen me. Told him I was missing. Missing. That word hit differently. Not because it wasn't technically true, I was gone, but because she made it sound like I'd been kidnapped, not like I walked away on purpose. Like I didn't leave a note. Like I didn't leave a wedding ring. I didn't answer any calls or texts for the first 3 days. I just existed. Ate takeout. Slept in. Watched TV shows I'd never had time for. Didn't touch a single tool or lift a finger to fix anything. I think I slept more that weekend than I had in the last 6 months combined. On the 4th day, I finally sent Claire a short text. I'm alive. I need space. That's it. No explanation. Just enough to stop her from filing a missing person report. Her reply came within seconds, 6 paragraphs of anger, guilt, and blame, all wrapped up in the same passive-aggressive tone I'd gotten used to. You're acting like a child. Zoe is devastated. You really left over one comment? Not once did she say, I'm sorry. Not once did she ask if I was okay. I forwarded the message to Mitch. Mitch has been my best friend since high school. He's blunt, a little rough around the edges, still single at 43, and Claire never liked him. Said he was immature. What she really meant was that Mitch saw through the act. He'd watched me get steamrolled for years and didn't hide his opinion. When I called him that first day, he didn't hesitate. Offered his guest room, no questions asked. I turned him down, I needed solitude, but he hooked me up with his cousin, Nate, who was remodeling a house across town and needed help. It wasn't glamorous work, drywall, cabinets, paint, but it was honest. Cash under the table. And for the first time in forever, I felt useful on my own terms. Claire always minimized that kind of work. Acted like it was just a hobby. You're good with your hands, she'd say, but we really should hire professionals. Like the fact that I fixed everything myself was somehow less valuable than writing a check. But Nate paid me $400 for 2 days of work. He even told me I was faster and more precise than the last guy he'd hired. I didn't say it out loud, but damn, that felt good. That week, I did something else too. I went to the bank. For 15 years, I'd handled the mortgage from my personal account. Claire had her own for personal spending. I never asked questions. But this time, I transferred half our joint savings, my legal share, into a new account at a completely different bank. Set up my direct deposit to land there. Then I removed myself as an authorized user on Claire's credit cards. None of it was illegal. None of it was revenge. It was just freedom. Financial independence I should have established years ago. And then I waited. By day 5, I could tell the wheels were starting to wobble. The texts became more frantic. The tone shifted. The mortgage company called. The dishwasher's broken again. Zoe needs $250 for her cheer competition by Friday. I can't cover it. I read those messages while sipping black coffee and watching cable news in the motel lounge. Claire sounded overwhelmed. Like life was suddenly harder without her personal repairman and financial safety net. Like the invisible parts of what I did were finally becoming visible. Good. On day 6, I looked at myself in the mirror, really looked. My beard was patchy, my eyes tired, shoulders slumped like they'd been carrying bricks for years. I needed a reset. So I walked into a real barbershop. Got a clean fade and a hot towel shave. Bought 2 new shirts that actually fit. Nothing fancy, just something that didn't have paint stains or frayed collars. Stopped by a diner for lunch, sat at the counter like I used to when I was 20-something. It felt simple. It felt right. On day 8, something unexpected happened. I was grabbing coffee downtown, feeling like maybe, just maybe, I was beginning to reclaim myself. Then I heard a voice behind me laughing. Zoe. She was sitting with Madison and 2 other girls from her cheer team. They hadn't seen me at first, but Madison spotted me and nudged Zoe. Zoe turned around. The look on her face? I couldn't even describe it. Shock. Confusion. Maybe a tiny sliver of guilt. Like seeing me outside the context of our house made me real. A human being. Not just the guy with the wrench in the wallet. I nodded once. Didn't smile. Just turned back to the counter, paid for my coffee, and walked out. By the time I got back to my motel, my phone had lit up again. This time from Zoe. Where are you staying? Are you okay? Are you coming back? Are you divorcing Mom? I didn't answer. Not because I want to punish them, I don't. But because for the first time in a long time, they're starting to ask questions. And that matters more than any apology they could throw at me right now. Back at the motel, I kicked off my shoes and laid on the bed, staring at the ceiling. They're starting to see what life looks like without me. And I'm starting to see what life looks like for me, not just around me. And that changes everything. I got to the coffee shop nearly 20 minutes early. I don't know why, nerves probably. I paced outside for a bit before finally heading in and making sure the private room in the back was set up. It was quiet, just a small round table and 3 chairs. A glass door with a curtain you could pull shut. I ordered a black coffee and sat down to wait. Every few seconds I checked my watch like I was about to meet with some high-level spy contact. My heart thudded in my chest like it knew this wasn't just a meeting, it was a reckoning. Claire arrived 5 minutes early. Alone. And I'm not gonna lie, the first thing that hit me was anger. I'd been clear in my text. I wanted both of them there. No exceptions. No side talks. No attempts at controlling the narrative before Zoe got involved. But then I looked at Claire's face. She looked wrecked. Not her usual polished self. No makeup. Hair tied back in a loose ponytail. She wore sweatpants and a hoodie, not a single hint of effort, which, if you knew Claire, said everything. Her eyes were puffy like she hadn't slept. She scanned the room until she saw me, then gave a half-hearted wave and walked over. In her hands, of all things, was a paper folder. She sat down without a word. And within seconds, she was crying. Not delicate movie scene crying. I mean the full-on, hiccuping, messy kind that makes everyone else in the room uncomfortable. A barista passed by the door and gave me a look like, "Should I check on you?" I didn't say anything. Just waited her out. When she finally caught her breath, she asked, "Is Zoe coming?" I reminded her calmly that I had asked for both of them to be here. That this wouldn't work without that. Claire wiped her face with her sleeve and said Zoe was waiting in the car. Too nervous. Too ashamed. I didn't flinch. Just looked her in the eye and said, "Text her. Tell her to come in. Or I leave." That might sound cold, but it wasn't anger. It was necessity. 5 minutes later, Zoe walked in. Hood up. Shoulders hunched. Eyes locked on the floor like it might swallow her. She slipped into the chair next to her mom and didn't look up. So I asked them one question. When exactly did I become the family joke? They didn't answer at first. Just looked at each other. Claire opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. Not to shut her down, just to pause her. I don't want excuses. I don't want "it was just a joke." I want you to think. When did it become okay to laugh at me, not with me, in my own home? After I spent hours fixing something for you. Zoe started fidgeting with her sleeves. Claire shifted in her seat. Then Claire started talking, and yes, the excuses came. It was just meant to be funny. We didn't think you'd take it like that. Zoe's a teenager. She doesn't mean everything she says. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled out my phone. I opened the voice memos app and pressed play. First recording, Christmas. Claire in the kitchen on the phone with her sister. Laughing about how I spent 3 days installing new kitchen cabinets like some proud little handyman while saying how pathetic it was that I didn't just hire someone like a real adult. Claire went ghost white. Then I played another one. 2 months ago. Zoe in her room video chatting with Madison laughing about how my dad's such a cheap loser he'd rather fix the washer himself than replace it. Zoe looked like I'd slapped her. Her mouth dropped open, and for the first time in years I saw genuine shock. Not performance. Not guilt manipulation. Just shock. I'd been collecting receipts for months. Not to hurt them, to remind myself that I wasn't going crazy. That I hadn't imagined the quiet ridicule. The snide remarks they thought I never heard. Zoe's eyes filled up. She didn't say anything, but the tears said enough. Claire tried to shift gears. She opened the folder and started showing me printouts, bills, statements. Mortgage due, lawn service quotes, the plumber's $400 invoice. She mentioned Zoe's cheer competition fees, how they might have to pull her out because of the cost. She was trying to paint a picture, they were struggling. They needed me. But I didn't flinch. I let her talk. Let her show me the numbers. Then I said something I should have said years ago. I'm not your ATM. I'm not your repairman. I'm not your emotional punching bag. I'm supposed to be your husband. Your father. A man you respect. Someone you're grateful to have in your life. Not someone you use until he disappears. Silence. Then finally, Zoe spoke. It was quiet. Fragile. Like it might break if you looked at it too hard. Are you coming home? I didn't rush to answer. Instead, I pulled out a second sheet of paper. Folded neatly. Here's what has to happen if you ever want me back under that roof, I said. 1. Joint finances. 1 shared account for all household expenses. Claire earns more, she contributes more. Fair is fair. 2. Zoe gets a part-time job. Just weekends. Just enough to learn the value of money. Cheer is great, but she helps pay for it now. 3. Family counseling. Mandatory. Weekly sessions for at least 6 weeks. No skipping. 4. Zoe does 20 hours of community service. Not court-ordered, my request. I suggested Habitat for Humanity. Let her build something real. 5. Claire stops spending $300 on salon visits while complaining about plumbing costs. Image doesn't come before family anymore. Claire started to protest. Said Zoe was too busy. Said I was being controlling. I stood up and slid my chair in. These aren't suggestions, I said. These are the terms. Then something surprising happened. Zoe turned to her mom and said, Mom, stop. She turned to me and added, I can work. Madison said the smoothie place at the mall is hiring. I'll apply. And, I'm sorry, Dad. For everything. Those words, I'm sorry, hit harder than I expected. Claire looked between us, defeated. She finally nodded. Said she agreed to everything. Asked me when I was coming home. I told her not yet. I paid for the motel through the end of the month. I'll come by this weekend to mow the lawn and fix the dishwasher. But I'm not moving back in until I see real change. Not just promises. Proof. Zoe asked if she could help fix the dishwasher. Said she wanted to learn. That made me smile, genuinely, for the first time in a long time. As we were leaving, Claire handed me the folder. Said she'd been working on it all week. I didn't look at it until later. Inside was a handwritten list of everything I'd repaired around the house in the past year, with estimates of how much it would have cost to hire professionals. Total? Over $15,000. At the bottom, she'd written, This is just the money. It doesn't count your time, your knowledge, or the care you gave. I see it now. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was a start. The day after that meeting, I didn't go back to the house. Instead, I went to check out a small 1-bedroom apartment not far from downtown. It wasn't much. Basic kitchen, creaky floors, old windows that let in a bit too much noise. But it was clean, month to month, and more importantly, mine. No one else's clutter. No one else's expectations hanging in the air. I didn't sign the lease right away. Just stood in the middle of the empty living room, imagining what it would be like to fall asleep in silence, to wake up in peace, to drink coffee without someone reminding me I'd forgotten to replace a light bulb. Back at the motel, I opened Claire's folder again. I'd read that list twice already, but something about it kept pulling me back. Every item was like a receipt for years I'd spent holding everything together, with my hands, with my time, with my sanity. She'd done the math. But for once, she'd seen the value. Later that evening, I got a message from Zoe. She'd applied at 3 different places at the mall. Said she had an interview scheduled at the smoothie bar the next morning. Asked if I'd help her practice. I said yes. We spent an hour on a video call, going through sample questions, talking about confidence, posture, how to answer what's your biggest weakness. Without sounding like you're reading off a script. She was nervous, but focused, and she smiled, genuinely smiled. It wasn't the smirk I'd gotten used to seeing over the last couple of years. It was the smile of the kid from the Playhouse photo. The kid I thought I'd lost for good. That same night, Claire texted too. She'd booked our first session with a family counselor for next Tuesday. Asked if it worked with my schedule. I said yes to that as well. I didn't tell her this, but I had no intention of rushing back just because the boxes were being ticked. I needed to see consistency. I needed to feel it. This wasn't about punishing them, it was about protecting me. Saturday morning, I drove to the house for the first time in over 2 weeks. The grass had gotten high, but not unmanageable. The dishwasher was still broken, just as Claire had said. Zoe was waiting in the kitchen when I arrived, in old clothes, hair tied back, tools laid out on the counter. "I watched 3 YouTube videos," she said. "Think I'm ready to shadow the master." That made me laugh. A real laugh. We fixed the pump together in under an hour. She asked questions, paid attention, didn't zone out once. When we finished, she high-fived me like we just landed on the moon. It was a moment. Small maybe, but it mattered. Claire stayed in the background most of the time. Quiet, careful. Before I left, she asked if I'd stay for dinner. I politely declined. Told her I wasn't ready for that yet. Not until after at least 2 counseling sessions. Not until it stopped feeling like I was walking into a test. And she didn't argue. Just nodded and said, "Okay." On Monday, Zoe texted me after her interview. Said it went well. They offered her the job. She starts next weekend. I told her I was proud of her. She responded, "Thanks, Dad, for pushing me. I needed it." Those words hit deep. That night, I cooked myself dinner in the motel microwave, cracked open a cold beer, and sat outside listening to traffic roll by. No shouting, no demands, no one needing anything from me, just peace. 3 weeks. That's how long it's been since I walked out of a house where I was laughed at by my own daughter while my wife joined in from the bedroom. 3 weeks since I stopped being their safety net, their background character, their invisible man. And for the first time in years, I feel whole. Not fixed. I'm not pretending I've got everything figured out, but present, solid, like someone who matters. The future? It's murky. Maybe Claire and I will make it. Maybe we won't. I'm not putting pressure on the outcome anymore. I'm watching actions, not listening to promises. If we rebuild something together, it's going to be on my terms too. But Zoe, she gives me hope. Because when I looked at her that day in the kitchen, asking about dishwashers and jobs and interviews, I saw it. The shift. The realization that her father wasn't some backup character in her life. That he'd been there all along, doing the hard stuff, the invisible stuff, and that none of it was owed, none of it guaranteed. Respect has to be earned. And now they're earning it back. Maybe in a few months I'll move into a permanent place. Maybe I'll come home, not to the old home, but to a new version of it. One where I'm heard, seen, valued. Or maybe I'll stay right here and build a new life with the tools I've always had. Not hammers and screwdrivers, but boundaries, clarity, and self-respect. Whatever happens next, I'll walk into it with my eyes open. Because I'm no longer just the guy who fixes things. I'm the guy who finally fixed himself.